guys, it's Kelsey. I'm back with Stretch the Sketch. So you'll see once we get going that I'm using book paper because this was actually what I made for last month's Stretch the Sketch. And then once I finished it, I realized I used the sketch for April instead of March. So now you're seeing it in April, but I did create it in March when I was really trying to use my book paper for the How to Kill a Kit with Style book theme. And then I pulled in some Heidi Swapp Honey and Spice because I didn't have an actual collection last month. I was just using different things from my stash. And I love this collection. I hadn't used it in a while, so I really wanted to use it for this page. This page is documenting Billy's surgery. So if you guys don't know, last June I lost Billy to cancer, and so this is kind of leading up to that. This is when he had his first surgery when we found a mast cell tumor. He had a mast cell tumor on the back of his neck and on his tail. So they took as much as they could on the back of his neck, and then they ended up amputating his tail just to make sure they got it all, because otherwise they definitely would have left some if they tried to salvage his tail. So they had to do a tail amputation. They took the one off the back of his neck, and this is kind of documenting his recovery. I am a veterinary technician, so we did it at my job, so I was able to sit with him during recovery, which is where the photo's from, when he's just kind of groggy from after anesthesia. He did so good. I'll log it. I have another photo from his second surgery, but I think I might just document it this one time just because it's redundant. He had to have a second surgery because the masses came back. And then after that second surgery, it was just too aggressive to put him through any more surgeries because the prognosis was so poor. So I just wanted to document a surgery just because even though we don't like documenting some of the sadder stuff, it's part of our life. And I think I'll appreciate it in the long run, having it documented. I think it's an important part of his story to document as well. And honestly, any excuse I have to document Billy, I'm going to do it. So I am going to shrink this sketch down into an 8.5 by 11. And I'm going with this simple kind of black and white text. I've been avoiding using this paper in the paper pad because I just felt like it was kind of busy. I think it's a really cool paper. But I feel like I needed to pile stuff on top of it in order to make it not so busy. And I knew I really wanted to do mixed media on the page. One of the things I really liked in that sketch was all the mixed media details that were behind the photo and the cluster. So this sketch kind of has the photo with a couple paper layers and a lot of mixed media towards the upper right hand corner of the page, and then they had some mixed media with a little embellishment cluster in the lower left hand corner. So I'm really trying to mimic that. And I'm trying to ink everything in black because I'm thinking I'm going to do some black mixed media and use kind of some of the more colorful colors in that Honey and Spice collection. There's a lot of beautiful marbly prints with some pinks and some yellows. So I'm thinking if I use that paper, and then I can have some high contrast with some of these other black and white papers. And I also really liked, because I knew I wanted to use book paper when I made this last month. And I think the creaminess of the book paper, since it's kind of older paper, kind of went really well with the yellow tones that were in the pattern paper. And I wanted to make sure I merged those because I don't like mixing white and cream. So I think having the yellowy tone papers help kind of merge that creamy book paper. And then I'll also pull in some wood veneer that also has that warm kind of creamy color. So hopefully it doesn't look too jarring having a cream paper and a pink paper so close together. But here you can see I'm going to go ahead and matte my photo in some of the scraps of that background paper. I'm going to ink that in black, and then I will matte it again in some of that book paper to go ahead and introduce that creamy color paper into the collection. And I wanted to use it right next to the black and white print because I didn't want to be shy with mixing cream and white on this one. Shamel does a really good job of mixing cream and white, and so I tried to follow a lot of the techniques she uses. And I think that kind of helped me merge the two color base colors for this. So I'm going to get that glued together. And I'm just trying to use scraps because I love the pink and yellow marbly paper in this collection. So I'm trying to be frugal with it. So we'll see. I have a lot of fun doing the mixed media though. I do not do mixed media hardly ever anymore, which is sad. I never really did do it a lot. I get really impatient because when I scrapbook, I want to make the page. Like I don't want to have to stop for things to dry. So that's really my frustration with mixed media. It's like I'm not patient enough to wait for layers to dry in between different things. But I was determined on this page to do it because I felt like it was a major part of the original sketch. So we'll see. I go through a couple different techniques to try to get the look that I want. But for now, I'm blissfully unaware of the mixed media. I'm just trying to focus on my paper layers, which I'm more comfortable with. So I'm just trying to play around with using different scraps to form these mats. A lot of the scraps I wanted to use were not big enough to go all the way around the photo, but I kind of like that when I do multiple little layers. Not all of my mats I like to go completely around the photo. I think it adds some interest when a layer only, mats three sides of the photo. So you'll see on that pink and yellowy marble print that it's only going to go around 3 sides. But I think I get stuck at this point and I'm not really sure how big I want to make any of these layers. So I go ahead and switch to doing the mixed media to see kind of how the mixed media will look on the page, to know kind of how big I want to make my photo layers. So I'm just taking some black India ink. I'm trying to do the packaging technique to create my base for this. I just want some messy black inkiness on the background. And that wasn't near as concentrated as I thought it was going to be. As you can see, the black India ink is very opaque, very pigmented. So I was worried I was just going to have a big, dense black blob on the page. But as you can see, it kind of thins out once a lot of it sticks to the plastic, which is nice. So I do a couple layers trying to figure out how I want this to look. I don't want that seam to show from where the center of the packaging is. So that part's going to be behind the photo anyways. I'm not too worried about it. But I do want to do a couple layers of this so there's varying depth and opacity in the ink. So once I kind of have this base of the packaging, I'm going back and doing big ink splots with the dropper. And I'm trying to get varying sizes of that too. And some of the drops I'm trying to drop from really high up so you get a good splat effect when it finally hits the paper. And then I'm going back and just tapping it to try to get some smaller splatters like I would for Heidi Swapp Gold Color Shine type thing. So I'm going to go back in and add some little bits there. And as per usual, when I do mixed media, I do not do enough of it. I always do the mixed media and then cover everything with my photos. So I have to go back a couple times and just add more until I can kind of see the amount that I want, because most of this gets covered. It's going to be right behind where my photo is. So it takes me a minute to get comfortable with doing enough to where I'm happy with how much shows. But I wanted a different texture. I wanted to stick with the black on black mixed media, but I want to do something other than the India ink. So I do go in with this little grid stamp, which is super cute. I'm pretty sure Moira sent that to me, if I'm not mistaken, and I love it. It's my favorite little background stamp to add to mixed media clusters. So I'm trying to dry this really quick with my heat gun so I can ink on top and stamp on top of it. With that little ink pad, and I think I go in and I even splatter some more once I kind of see how much is going to be covered. But this was really fun. I love doing this mixed media with the black. I actually like this black mixed media a lot more than when I do color, which I think is funny because when I was really little, when I was at daycare, I worried my teachers because all the kids would be coloring their coloring pages with all the colors, and I would only use black. I did not like the messiness of all the different colors that the other kids would do. So all of my coloring pages would all only be black crayon. And eventually they talked to me. It's like, you have to use some other colors. I think I really worried them. So I remember my mom told me my next drawing I did, it was all black. And then in the corner, there's a little speck of red, which I think is hilarious. But I think it's funny now that I do mixed media. Even as an adult, I prefer doing all black mixed media. I love this tone on tone black. I think it's so fun. But now that I did the inking, I really love the kind of the texture and the dimension that adds. So now I'm going to see how much I'm about to cover up of all that hard work with my photos. So I'm going to do a couple more layers and trimming up these layers to more what they're going to be I end up trimming this quite a bit. I just want a little bit of that pink and yellow to go around the edge of that photo. And again, I'm going to ink that in black too. But once I lay that down, you can see I pretty much cover almost all of what's up there. So I'll have to go back and add a little bit more. I love what's peeking out at the top. I need there to be more, and then I need some to peek out of the bottom as well, because I still want to add more layers. But what I already have is already covering everything. So I'm going back to the Bombay Black India ink, and I'm going to try to do a little bit more of the packaging technique a little bit lower, and then I will go in and do some more splatters too. But I'm trying not to mess up what I already have. I really need this to be a little bit bigger. I don't even think that's low enough. I think I have to go back and add more too. Yep. This always happens when I do mixed media. I have to add mixed media like 2 or 3 times to finally get it to be the area that I want. So that's looking good though. You can't go wrong with the packaging technique. It's just such an easy technique that always looks cool and like can never go wrong. I mean, I guess it could. It's gone wrong before for me. I shouldn't act like it never does, but it's such a cool effect. Adding some more stamping. I went a little stamp happy here actually with that, but I loved the way that looked with all of the packaging technique. So I like the size of that now. I think I still go back and add some more splatter, but I like how you can see some now poking around the right side of the photo and then down underneath. And now I'm going to go and add some more splatter. I went splatter happy too, but I really like how it ended up looking. I just needed some more. And I wanted some to kind of connect these 2 spots. It was very like a little cluster to the left, big cluster to the right, and they were kind of isolated. So I like having some of these splatters kind of connecting the 2 areas, but I think this looks really cool. So very happy with how it looks right now. So I will have to heat gun dry it again, because again, I'm impatient. And then I will come back and play with some more layers. So now that the mixed media is done, I need to figure out some of the other textural elements. I really liked in the sketch, it looked like they had some like die cuts coming out from the photo layers, and just some fun like background shapes that just added a lot of interest. So I kind of go through my stash to figure out what I want to use for that element. So now that that's done, I'm going in. I thought about using this kind of gray paper as a matte, but I decided not to. I really like the boldness of the black and white, and I already have the cream introduced with the book paper. I don't really want to also introduce a gray, because I'm really liking the contrast between all these colors and papers that are on here. But I do want to add a little bit more book paper. So what I end up doing, there is a horizontal kind of zigzaggy, sketchy element that goes over the photo where the title goes in the sketch. And I think I'm going to use the book paper and a notebook edge punch just to create some interest and layer a horizontal layering bit over the photo to give that same look. And I really like how that also pulls in some more book paper. This is probably one of my favorite layouts I did last month with my book paper. And you couldn't even see it because I did the wrong sketch. But it's okay. You're seeing it now. And I also found this kind of plastic netting that came in some Happy Mail too that I've had for a while as well. And I was really happy I had a piece of the white one left, so I thought that would be a really cool texture to have over the black mixed media behind the photo. So I do end up leaving that there, which is a cool touch. And then I'm really trying to add some more paper layers to my photo, but what I really need to focus on is like different die cuts I can layer, because I really don't want to add more just paper squares behind it, if that makes sense. But I get stuck with the photo, so I start looking more towards the lower left hand cluster to see what I want to do down there. And I know I want to use the same paper that's around the photo, so I'm using a scrap of that I guess it's more orange than yellow, isn't it? But that pinky orange marble, and then some book paper I'm just layering to create a little base for a cluster down there. I'm not sure what's going down there, but I know I want those papers to kind of be the background for whatever embellishment I do end up using. So I'm just trying to figure out sizing, and again, just trying to make sure I'm not going to cover up all of the mixed media. So I'm going to use that scrapbook book paper and then just trim down this marbly pattern paper just to be a little base down there, which I think is sweet. So I'm going to get that and trim that down a little more too. I'm really I hadn't thought ahead really about embellishment, and I don't have any embellishment for this collection. So I do end up going through my wood veneer stash and kind of using my wood veneer as my embellishment instead of like layered die cuts and stuff like that. So I think I wanted the mixed media to kind of be the star of this show, and there's so many fun different textures going on just within the layers. I kind of wanted to keep the embellishment like more simple so you could see the mixed media. But I really like this spacing. I just love how those look. It's not patterns and colors I would think to use together, but I think that's why I like this page so much, just because it's so different than what I would normally put together. But I'm happy with that. So I'm going to start gluing some stuff down. There are some like bannery elements that come down from the photo, so I definitely want to make sure I get some scraps of paper to create that little bannery look. The sketch also has like a title to the left of the photo and then journaling underneath. But with this background being so busy and with me squishing this down for Stretch the Sketch to a smaller layout, I kind of feel like, I don't know, I just didn't want to do that. I don't think I could write well over the background where they had it. So I'm trying to keep that in the back of my mind too. I definitely want a title. I definitely need to do some journaling about this page. But I'm definitely going to wait towards the end to figure out how I want to do that, because I don't want to do it how the sketch indicated. So I'm trying to just focus on the design for right now. But here you can see I pull in one of these die cuts. I'm pretty sure Ronnie sent this to me too. And I think it's really cool. It almost looks like a chain link fence. The sketch actually had like a hexagon die cut as one of the layers. So I thought this was perfect. So I'm going to try to be frugal with it and use it in a couple different spots. But I'm just going to tuck a piece of it into the top there. I did paint it. Actually, I sprayed it first with my Heidi Swapp Black Color Shine. But because the mica is silver, it looked too silvery. So I ended up using the Bombay Black India ink to paint over it to get a more opaque black, which I like better. So I ended up just coloring it. That way it went with the color story. But I'm going to get that glued down at the top, and then I'm going to do a chunk of that coming out of the bottom. So hopefully it looks like it's this long hexagon die cut layer behind all my photo layers. And then I'm going to use the scrap that's left over in my little cluster to the left there when we get done. So I get it in 3 different spots, which is nice. When I have these really cool looking die cuts, I'm really frugal with them. And if parts of it's going to be covered by layers, I always try to salvage it to use it again. I feel like this page is a good example because I used it at the top and the bottom and the side with that one little piece, which was good. But I think that adds like a whole new dimension. I just love how that die cut looks over the black mixed media. I think it looks so cool. And then I'm kind of going to layer it to the left there, and that's going to create my base for my cluster. So it kind of branches out from those 2 paper layers I already have and gives me a really convenient spot to put a die cut or, in my case, wood veneer once I finally get to that point. I think this is where I finally decide, okay, I want to incorporate that little horizontal element that goes across the photo in the sketch. So I'm just using some book paper and a notebook edge punch. I'm going to ink that in black as well. And then that's going to get layered over the photo, which I think also looks really cool. And it's kind of just empty part of the photo. It really just covers up my shirt and part of Billy's blanket. So I like that. I think it was too wide and it started to cover up Billy's nose, which is unacceptable. So I had to trim it down a little bit because I had to make sure I didn't cover up any of Billy in the photo. So I'm going to get that trimmed and then I'll glue that down. And then I'm pretty sure after that, I still need to do my banners, but most of my layers are down here. I really need to start focusing on embellishment soon. I got carried away with all these really fun layers and just did not have a plan. So I'm trying to remember at what point I start going through all my wood veneer stuff. So sorry, the neighbor's dog is out and he's barking. if you can hear that. It's actually a really nice day today. I should have the windows open, but then you'd really hear everything. There's a lot of birds out my window too. It probably would be nice background sound having the birds, but I don't want to hear that dog any louder. So, are we almost there? Yes, we are. Okay, so now I'm going to do those little banner details that are in the sketch. And again, I'm really only using 2 papers here. I'm using my book paper and I'm using this marbly paper. So I decided I would just do a banner with each of them and have them layered together down there to be that banner element. And I'm just trying to keep it simple. And I really like how that ends up looking too. So I'm going to ink that, and I'm actually going to tuck those underneath that hexagon die cut. Just because I feel like you really notice the die cut with it going over these layers and makes it look extra layery than if I just plopped it on top. So I'm just going to tuck that underneath there, which is really nice. And I love that because it kind of drags some of these paper layers down a little bit. Right now, all the paper layers are very square, and that helps draw your eye down some to connect to the bottom part of the page. So now I have my little scrap of book paper. I had to retrim this book paper because I had a scrap of book paper that I trimmed into a banner. And then I realized that the words on the book paper were not appropriate. So, at least for the theme of the page. So I grabbed a different scrap of book paper with other random words, but that were, not inappropriate to have as this other banner. So I'm just trying to see. I think that was the first banner, and I was like, I'm not using this banner on this page. So I tried to look at the words on the scraps of paper I had left to figure out what I wanted to use for that. So there's a double-edged sword to using the book paper. I really love how it looks, and I really love when the words on the book paper go with the theme. But I do feel like I have to be careful. It's just the Saurus book paper. It wasn't anything bad, but it was just stuff that I don't want on a page with me and Billy with his post-op surgery, So found a different scrap to make another banner. So I'm going to tuck that underneath. And then I think we're officially done with paper layers, and I really need to focus on embellishment. This is obviously an 8.5 by 11, so I will end up matting this on a 12 by 12, and I'll add a little extra to the 12 by 12 just to make it all look really cohesive. So that we still have to do that once I get through the embellishment. But for the sake of the 8.5 by 11, we're done with the paper layers now. So I just need to figure out embellishment, and I think we're almost there. I feel like I don't know if I sped this video up as much as normal. It feels slower to me. I don't know. I feel like I need the Jeopardy music in the background. Oh yeah, I forgot I didn't glue down the little notebook edge punch, so I'm going to do that really quick too. And I really like how skinny it is, but it really made it difficult to glue it down because that book paper is so thin. I didn't want to use the liquid glue because I was kind of worried the liquid glue would just seep through the book paper and look weird when it dried. But I just trimmed the double-sided adhesive tape and it ended up working good. So I'm going to get those peeled up and stuck down. And then I think we finally get to look through all of my embellishment. I really used a lot of the freckled fawn embellishment that I got from Black Friday. They had a couple really nice pieces that I've been saving for a special page, and I just think this is a really good page to use it on. There's a lot of symbolism with what I ended up using, so I enjoy this page once we kind of get to that point. So I think the last thing I have to glue down is this little die cut. I wasn't sure how much I wanted that to be sticking out from this little cluster. But once I kind of look and see what ephemera I have, I kind of know the size that I need. So I'm going to go ahead and get this glued down. I'm just using my Nuvo wet glue because the stuff dries clear, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about any overflow because you don't see it once it dries down. So I'm going to go ahead and get this part stuck down. I'm going to trim off the extra, and then we'll start going through wood veneer stuff, which actually doesn't take me that long. Like, for as much as I worried about not having embellishment for this page, once I pulled out my wood veneer, what I ended up using kind of just pops out at me. So now that that's glued down and trimmed off, here is my wood veneer container. And as I'm looking, I kind of see the freckled fawn rainbow that I have left over. I used one of them. It came in a pack of 2, so I still have this one to use. And then there's also a freckled fawn banner with a heart cut out. And then with all Billy's pages, I feel like I always end up using heartwood veneer, so I'm just going to pull out a couple just regular heartwood veneer to go with both of these. So have my rainbow. I thought about the heart banner being in that lower left-hand corner. I kind of like how it mimicked that long rectangular shape. But I feel like it looks better kind of going up at the top there. In the upper right-hand corner of the page, I kind of wanted my embellishment to be at the top right of that photo, and then it'll kind of frame my photo with embellishment then if I have some down there in the corner. So I thought about there being two heart banners, and I was like, okay, we'll just have the one heart banner by the photo, and then I will pull out this rainbow. And that actually ended up being a really good size for that area. I thought proportionally it would kind of be too big, but because it's the only thing that's really down there, I kind of like that it's just the focal point of that cluster. So I end up having a rainbow down there with one of the hearts, and then this heart banner up here with 2 hearts, and I think that's a really good balance. I thought initially when I went to the wood veneer that I was going to paint it black, but I feel like the black would have blended in too much, and then once I saw it on the page, I really feel like the tone of the wood veneer helped tie in the color of the book paper even more. And obviously those creamy gold colors also go with Billy's fur. So I think it all works out really good as is, just as raw wood veneer. So I didn't like how the heart cutout in this banner though was going over multiple layers. So I ended up just backing the the wood veneer with a scrap of that pink paper. That way I didn't have to worry about seeing the layers through the hole. And then now I have these other 2 hearts that are just kind of finishing it off, which I think is really cute. So I play around a little bit with these. I'm going to use my glue tape to glue down this banner really quick just because it's paper that's backing it. But then again, I will use my Nuvo wet glue to glue down the rest of the wood veneer. So I feel like that worked really well. Poor little Billy was just so sleepy in this picture. He had some good pain meds on board, so I wasn't worried about that. But he was just so groggy and snuggly, so I'm glad I could sit with him for a little bit after his surgery. So I'm going to get these hearts down. And then I was worried about gluing the rainbow down, but it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was. I just started from the outer rainbow arch and worked my way in. So it just takes me a little minute to do that too, and I think I'm going to skip to when that is done. Okay, so rainbow's down. I'm going to glue down the little heart friend that goes with the rainbow. And then this is where basically my 8.5 by 11 is done. I still know I want a title and I want journaling, but I do need to figure out how I'm going to mat this on a 12 by 12 and how it's going to look in my book. Because I am a 12 by 12 scrapper, I need to make sure the whole page looks good together once I mat it on a 12 by 12. So I'm going back through the Honey and Spice paper pad. This is probably one of the last papers I thought I would use in this collection, but the black and white really bold print popped out at me, and I thought it looked really cool with this other white and black print that was the 8.5 by 11. And just with the background of the 8.5 by 11 being more white, I think it looked really cool on this more black heavy 12 by 12. So I kind of shocked myself by picking this as my 12 by 12, but I really like it. So I'm going to trim off the branding strip really quick and then figure out where I want my 8.5 placed on it. And then I'll kind of figure out how I'm going to bring the two together, because I definitely feel like I need a little bit of embellishment or layering or something on the 12 by 12 to tie it to the rest of the page. So I just trimmed off the branding strip there, which was cut apart words. So I went ahead and cut apart the words so I could use it on a future layout. But this is where I kind of realized I really liked how the 8.5 by 11 looked to the right of the page with kind of equal amount border on those 3 sides. And I figured with the left side of the page that had the wider gap, I would incorporate those 2 papers that I've been using, being the pink and orange marble and the book paper, to create some layers over there to help it all tie together. So really quick, first I'm going to ink the edge in black. I don't think I forgot to ink anything in black on this page, so I was pretty proud of myself. I usually forget to ink something But got the background inked, and then I'll glue my 8.5 by 11 to the right and have these layers to the left. So I'm kind of playing around with some of the scraps that I have. I'm really glad that I got these used up because they're kind of awkward shapes, and I was worried I wouldn't get them used. So I'm really happy that they actually were the perfect thing to tie this 12 by 12 to the rest of it. So I am going to tear the edge. I really love the torn edge look, especially with book paper. So I'm just going through and tearing the edge of this pattern paper, and I'm just going to be layering these two scraps together with some torn book paper in between just to tie everything together. And I think it looks really cool. It worked out well. So it just takes me a minute to tear that. I definitely did not speed up this video as much as normal. I'm realizing I feel like this is like I'm talking longer than normal. So hopefully you guys enjoy the longer process video. And I'm going to ink this as well. I love inking torn edges too. I think it just accents the torn area. So I'm going to get that inked and lay that down. And then I'm just going to do the same to the other one. And I'm going to skip to where I have those down. Okay, so I glued the one down and then I just tore the edge of the other one. And this other one does not go all 12 inches, but I'm not too worried because I know I'm going to be layering these. So I'm just trying to layer that second one to where the edge is tucked completely behind the first layer so you can't see that it doesn't go all the way to the edge. And then now that I kind of have those placed, I'm going to re-ink the edge and now introduce some book paper. But you can see already, like, I just really, really like what that did to the page. So I love that. I'm going to go ahead and glue down my 8.5 by 11. I'm not going to worry about gutting because I honestly didn't think I would get this 12 by 12 used at all. It's not that I don't like it. It's just a very bold pattern that I thought I would have a hard time using in that paper pad. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover it up. Get it used. So using some of my double stick tape to glue down the 8.5 by 11. And I kind of thought at first that's all I needed were just to have those two pattern papers torn, which I think would have been fine. But just because, again, at the time I was making this, I was really making an effort to try to see all the different ways I could use book paper. So I went back in and introduced some book paper into those layers too, which I really like what that did as well. So I'm going to get all of this peeled off. I still, at this point, I think I forgot about the title in the journaling until the end. And then I was like, oh no, like, where am I going to do that? So I'll end up figuring that out too. But got the 8.5 by 11 glued down. And now I'm pulling in my scraps of book paper. Like, it's so ingrained into me, like, to hoard and gut and salvage paper that I'm trying to use these little scraps of paper, and it's just unnecessary because I have a giant full thesaurus of thousands and thousands of book papers. How many pages are in here? I mean, maybe I exaggerated, but there's over 800 pages in this thesaurus. Why am I salvaging scraps? Like, I'm never going to go through this whole thesaurus worth of book paper. So I just went in to grab another sheet, and again, just trying to make sure that any of the words that show are not going to be kind of weird for the theme. So I'm just trying to find something. You're not really even going to be able to read any of these words, but after the banner situation, I just wanted to make sure that these words are all fine. So again, just tearing. And these are just going to get tucked in between those other layers that I already had. So of course I glued them down, so it took me a minute to kind of shove it up under there, but I really like how that kind of extra bit looks, and it helps tie it back into the original layout. So I like that strip. I'm going to go ahead and glue it down. I think I inked that as well, actually, and then I'll go back and I'll tear one more strip to go between the other two papers. So it'll all look like it goes together. Then I think we're going to do our title and our journaling. This is definitely slower. I don't know what to talk about. This layout is going way slower than my normal voiceovers. And I still talk fast because I can't help it. So I say what I need to say super fast, and then I don't know what else to say. But I think that one is done. Now I'm going to go in with the second book paper. And I definitely want my title to be in my black foam root beer font thickers, because they're so big and black and bold and juicy, and I just think it goes really good with all this black mixed media that I did. So I definitely know that's what I'm going to use. I just don't know what my title is going to be or where I'm going to put it. But once I kind of get this part situated, I kind of feel like for the short title it ends up being, it will go really good in the lower left-hand corner on that layer that I just glued down. So I end up just titling this SX. So I don't know if it's across the board. If anyone else is a vet tech, let me know, or in the hospital, but our abbreviation for surgery is SX. So I just decided to label it that because it's documenting Billy's surgery. So I'm going to have that in the lower left-hand corner. And then there wasn't really a good spot for journaling. I guess I could have done it up this pink and orange thing to the left, strip of paper. But I really wanted it to be on the 8.5 by 11. So I ended up just journaling along the very bottom of that page in black. And I actually really like it. You can still read it over the pattern, but it doesn't draw your attention or distract, which is what I wanted. I wanted the information there for if you were looking for it, but I didn't want it to distract from the design, so that's really what I ended up doing. So all I'm writing right now is Billy was such a good boy for his surgery to remove his cancerous tumors on head and tail. That's kind of just what I wanted to leave it at. I just wanted to document the surgery and what the photo was about, and then get my title down. So that's pretty much it though. I really like how this one came together. I love the different mix. I love the mixed media and all the different little layers. So here are the close-ups. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you check out everyone else playing along with Stretch the Sketch, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.